Ancient Chinese secret.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
You know, John, every time I hear that intro, I think to myself, I wish the show would live up to the intro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're right, and we don't, Brad, because we exceed the intro, don't you think?
We exceed the intro. Oh, well, John, you know what? You're the optimist. Sometimes I'm the pessimist. You know, what you get on my case about the fact that I'm too self-effacing? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, I would say low self-esteem theater. Is what I like to call it.
That is John
Brad,
Cobbett.
It is a hallmark of your true, and I mean this sincerely, it's a hallmark of your true humbleness and your humility. But sometimes I think I must call you out on the fact that there is a little bit of low self-esteem theater. And if I can pump your tires a little bit, Brad, then pump.
I only allow nitrogen in my tires, John, so just be forewarned for that. Okay, we start the show off every morning. John is, whereas Brad is the schlub of the two, he's the straight man. John is the shining star. John is the guy that has done something that most people could never, ever do. Matter of fact, it would take them right now, if they started today, 22 years to equal where John's at right now. Every single day he does something, and he does it excellently. He updates all the different news sites around the state of Missouri, finds all these stories that are pertinent to Missouri. Could be things that happen on Capitol Hill in D.C. or Capitol Hill in Jefferson City, and he distills all the important news items down to his top, johncombest.com. That's his top thing. But we do it even more, where we take his sometimes 30, 40, 50 different articles that appear daily on johncombest.com, and we bring it down to 3. We bring in this guy who essentially, what do you do again now?
We're on our way to the number one.
He counts them down, and we start off with...
In third place,
I hooked the boat into the back of my truck, called up a friend and said, let's go try our luck. He said, I'm sorry, buddy, I can't go. I'm watching the Andrew Bailey Fishin show. With apologies to Orlando Wilson and all fans of WTBS in the 1980s, Andrew Bailey, Missouri's Attorney General, is at the center of a vicious controversy, Brad. Have you seen any headlines about this?
I got a feeling I know where you're going with this, but go ahead.
Oh, Brad. A little more than 2 decades ago, Missouri's top attorney, Andrew Bailey, violated Missouri law. And he was on fishing expeditions. And he stayed in a park late, Brad, after a Missouri park closed. He broke the law. And did you know what? He was fined $15 that he paid. But these offenses, Brad, have come to light, and they are covered by Missouri's journalists. Kurt Erickson from the Post-Dispatch. Here's the headline, Brad. As Andrew Bailey entered state government, Missouri's top lawyer wiped own record clean. How dare he, Brad? Anyway, I don't know. If there was one magic bullet or one magic, crankbait or spinnerbait or topwater lure that could sink Andrew Bailey, I think it's the fact that when he went fishing one time, he violated Missouri law. Is this finally going to be the straw that gets you to break the back of your support for Andrew Bailey?
Well, let me ask you one question. When you said who was the dude from the Post-Dispatch who reported this?
Kurt Erickson, yeah, the intrepid reporter Kurt Erickson.
Kurt Erickson. Okay, is this the only thing that was on his record? That was it? There was one thing where...
Yeah, I think, there were 2 things. So he paid at age 18, and this is coming from Andrew Bailey's campaign. A spokesman, Mike Hafner, talked about this. At age 18... Bailey says he paid a $15 fine for staying in a park after hours following a fishing expedition. Later, while in college, he paid a $25 fine for violating another conservation law. Now, I don't know if that was fishing or if it was hunting. And then Erickson concedes neither of the citations affected his ability to enter the military, obtain a law license, or receive state approval to serve as a foster parent. So, wow, Brad. Like, this is, like, if you got to have a bad story about you come out, I think it's this.
Well, I now are well, I'm going to say the Democrats because the Democrats aren't against him right now. He's in a primary battle. Are the people on the other side of the equation, the people who are, and you know what? And what's interesting was you could essentially say, well, look at who his opponent is. He unsuccessfully tried to defend Donald Trump and he lost the case. I mean, you know,
right? I mean, there's a lot of silliness that could happen here. So to your question, whether or not Will Scharf and Will Scharf's team was behind. And I guess the issue here is that you can have a number of violations expunged from your record, and apparently that's what Bailey did, I guess, in 2018 before he began serving in the state of Missouri in an official capacity.
Well, you know,
I don't imagine. Go ahead, Brad.
Well, I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard there's a new national organization called Normal. Have you heard of this group before?
Oh, yeah, the National Organization for the Reform of Missouri Laws.
Yes, you're exactly right. You took my thunder there. That's exactly what it is. And what they're doing is they are going through all the Missouri laws and picking out the ones that they think are unbelievably stupid. And what you do is if you go to the Normal website and you fill out the form, and you essentially plead, oh, I'm so sorry I did this. I was young. I didn't know any better. Then they give you a dispensation, and you pay a tax. Matter of fact, you pay a 6% state tax. You pay a 3% municipal tax wherever you live and a 3% county tax, and your record is expunged.
Wow, that's remarkable, Brad. Now, where does that – and part of that money does go into the reparations fund, right?
I don't know
and
where.
universal basic income. To answer your previous question, Brad, I think I interrupted you when you ask a question. But the idea of whether or not Will Scharf's campaign is behind this, I doubt it. I mean, I'm biased because I happen to like Will Scharf and the people that are around him. But I doubt that Will Scharf would point out that Andrew Bailey was a young fisherman. Like, I don't think that, like, you know, if Andrew Bailey liked to throw some topwater, you know, a little topwater action at dawn, I don't think that that's really a winning campaign strategy for Will Scharf. So I doubt that Will Scharf was behind this, but who knows?
Well, but the thing about it is that doesn't it almost make Andrew Bailey look better because he's such a Boy Scout that the only time he's ever running with the law?
100%, Brad. 100%. And the idea of, I think people like their candidates, and look at Donald Trump. And maybe Trump isn't a perfect example of this because he has so much in his past. But people like somebody that has a little bit of hair on them. You know what I mean?
Oh.
And like Andrew Bailey, if you're a war hero and you're a good old boy and you look good in every picture, Andrew Bailey looks like the guy that you didn't want to flirt with your date at homecoming. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I know
so for him to have a little bit of dust on him, I think is okay.
I know exactly what you're saying because of the fact that I've talked many times on this show, and people who know me know I talk about this all the time. I'm fascinated by biographies because you read these biographies of these extremely successful. Matter of fact, I got one this morning we'll talk about, believe it or not, Vanilla Ice, which is a pretty interesting story.
Robert Van Winkle.
Yes, and we'll talk about that maybe in the B block. But the thing about it is you see these people who are incredibly successful, and you go, oh my God, how did the guy do it, or how the lady do it? And then you find out their life at one point in time was like a meltdown. You know, it was just horrible.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe they came from a tremendously dysfunctional family, or they had something happen in their life, or something like that. I mean, like on this very station, I'm running now. The only problem is, you know, there are some people who don't know these names, Lee Marvin and Robert James Garner, people like that. I think people still know who James Garner is for a large part. Maybe not the really young ones, the Z's or stuff like that. But you hear these stories of these guys who were like just average Joes who, in this case, became war heroes. I mean, the professor from Gilligan's Island, Russell Johnson, who was a war hero in the Pacific, who was shot down and treaded water with 2 broken legs for 12 hours before he was rescued. And you see these people and you go like, holy cow, how did they ever overcome that? And
yeah, but also what you don't mention is that Russell Johnson, he stayed at Busch Wildlife after sundown, and he violated the rules of the park, Brad. He got fined $15, and you're here putting him over, talking about how great he is. That's a great lead in to story number 2, Brad.
I was going to make another comment about how I got in trouble at Castlewood Park, but that's a whole other issue.
I bet you did. I bet you were looking for sinkholes like it was Klondike Park. Go ahead, Brad.
Let's go with number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
KWTO Radio down in Springfield had a group on that we haven't talked too much about here on the show, Brad, but I think we should talk about them a little bit. A group called Freedom Principle Missouri, or Freedom Principle Mo. A gentleman named Kerry Wells was on the show yesterday. There's a show called Wake Up Springfield that's in the morning, obviously, on KWTO. The host, Alex Bryant, had Kerry Wells from Missouri Freedom Principle, or Freedom Principle Mo, on to talk about the group's legislative scorecard. And an interesting nugget, I think, from Mr. Wells on here was that he said that a number of state legislators weren't really sure how to vote on the Missouri budget this year. And they went to Kerry and they went to the leader of Freedom Principle Missouri, Freedom Principle Mo, Byron Keelan, and asked, hey, if I vote this particular way on the budget, how will the scorecard of Freedom Principle Mo view me? Like, will I get docked? Will I get dinged on these votes? And I think it's a really good illustration of the fact that now we have so many grassroots groups, we have so many ideological groups in Missouri, Brad, that are putting together their own scorecards. And legislators who want to get either reelected to their current position or elected to higher office go to these groups and say, hey, look, I'm thinking of voting this way, but I'm not sure if you guys are going to ding me or not. So go to my website today, take a look at the KWTO interview. I have all the timestamps up in which Mr. Wells is talking about the group's scorecard and how the scorecard is put together. Can I be petty for a second, Brad?
Well, John, and I got to ask you a question about this, but go
sure.
ahead and be petty.
Okay, let me be petty real quick. For the folks, Alex Bryant isn't on Twitter. There's a young woman named Matea Miller who works on the show, who I believe she is on Twitter, so I might flag this for her. Several times throughout the interview, Alex Bryant, who seems like a wonderful human being, Brad, he's a pastor. He sounds like a great evangelist for all kinds of conservative causes. He calls Governor Parsons. And I've listened to Alex Bryant for months, and he does this, and it's just a little bit grating. But yesterday, he keeps talking about Governor Parsons. He compares Governor Parsons to Oprah, which was actually pretty funny. You have to listen to the segment to understand why. But can somebody please tell Alex that the governor's name is Mike Parson? There's one S in Parson. It's not Parsons. And the name of the group is Freedom Principle Mo. It's not Missouri Freedom Principles. Okay? So let's stop putting an S on everything. Let's tighten it up. I know Alex is a pastor. I'm sure that maybe he delivers sermons and Gladys has her hearing aid batteries off and Eunice takes her gout medicine so she falls asleep during the sermon and nobody cares about accuracy, but the rest of us do. So let's tighten it up a little bit. Brad, what's your point?
You said he made mention of Oprah's. Is that what you said? Of Oprah's?
Yeah, he compared Governor Parson to Oprah Winfrey.
No, you didn't catch what I said, did you? I said
Oprah's.
Oprah's.
Yes, and her company Harpo's.
Yeah,
it's also on Chesterfield and it's in Columbia. What was your question, Brad?
My question was, okay, this is an opinion question, okay? Do you think it's sad that these legislators are going to this dude and essentially saying, well, if we vote this way, how are you going to rate us? Aren't they supposed to be representing us, the citizenry, not the opinion of some group that's going to endorse them, thumbs up, thumbs down? I mean, isn't that the sort of the epitome of not trusting your gut?
I think if you represent, for example, so of course, Brad, the answer is yes. It is sad. However, if you're a group like Freedom Principle Missouri or your AFP Missouri or your Missouri Right to Life, you say, hey, we have principles, we have standards, and we will judge you by how you vote. And you know what? I want legislators to come to me if I'm one of these groups and say, I'm not sure. I mean, I think some of the stuff in the budget is good, but I don't know. I want them coming to me and we say, yes, we give you a blessing. For example, Brad, Freedom Principle, Mr. Wells on the show said that Freedom Principle Missouri thought that the House, I hope we're not getting too far into the weeds here, but the House Budget Chairman, Cody Smith, they praised him and said, you know what? He did a good job. He cut a lot of spending from the budget. We bless the folks who vote with Cody Smith on the budget. So If I'm one of these groups, Brad, I say, you know what? I want people coming to us. Now, to answer your question bluntly, Brad, of course, we're in a representative republic. We are not in a direct democracy. We elect people to vote using their own best judgment. And I wouldn't want my state representative to go to 12 different groups and take the average of their opinion and then vote. I would want him or her to vote based on what they campaigned on.
John, I think we're missing I'm the eternal entrepreneur. I think we're missing something right here. We're missing.
Yeah, what's that?
We need to start our own group, and these people could come to us. I mean, Bill Eigel call me up and say, Brad, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? Well, Bill, I don't know. I think what you should do is, I think you should be in favor of free popsicles on Thursday. Okay, Brad. I mean, and John, I know some of these people are your friends. Okay, what gives them the anointment of the ability to anoint these people by saying you have our approval? I mean,
I'm going to tell you why, Brad. I'll tell you exactly why, and I can do it in less than 60 seconds. Because in the old days, you used to have to go down to the township storefront and talk to Schmitty McGee about getting an endorsement. And if you didn't have the Republican establishment backing you, you were SOL. You were shoot out of luck. So if I'm a conservative activist and I say, you know what, the party establishment is too old, they're too staid, they're too out of touch, I'm going to create my own group, the Brad and John Right-Wing Nutjob Group. We're anti-Kino. We are anti-Rhino. We are pro-Gyno, depending on what your looks are. But we could form our own group, Brad, and don't leave it to the Republican establishment or the millionaires in the Republican Party to set their own principles. Create your own group, create your own scorecard, and set your own ideological rubric by which candidates must match themselves, Brad. I like it. You know what? Chairman Mao said, let 1,000 flowers bloom. Why don't we have 1,000 grassroots groups that are tiny and fragmented? And then we can just argue amongst each other all the time, Brad.
Well, we could give our show, we could give candidates like we could give the BJ seal of approval. So-and-so, Bill Eigel has received the BJ seal of approval.
I love it, Brad. And then candidates could say, hey, we have the top-rated BJ in Missouri.
Right.
You know what, Brad? I refuse to take advice from somebody that once got kicked out of a Bill Eigel fundraiser.
Okay.
I don't know what moral high horse you're on, considering the Highway Patrol kicked you out of a Bill Eigel.
Well, it wasn't the Highway Patrol.
Folks should go back to the archives.
They investigated me afterwards, but that's a whole nother story. Okay, and I snorted a couple seconds ago. I apologize. Okay, last but not least,
the number one.
Boy, I tell you what, if you are sitting down and you are Donald Trump and you're preparing for a debate, what do you want? You probably want your opponent to have to stand the whole time if he's a decrepit old bag and wide-toed shoes. What else you need, Brad? You need a senator from Missouri to help sit down and smarten you up on the issues. Who do you think did it for Donald Trump, Brad?
It was Eric Schmitt.
It was Eric Schmitt. That's right. Very good. This story is brought to us by Daniel DeRochers from the Kansas City Star. And I rarely do this, Brad, but let's give a shout out to Daniel DeRochers just because when he first started at the Kansas City Star, I was kind of a Richard to him. You know what I mean? Like a Richard Nixon, whatever Richard Nixon's nickname was. I was kind of a jerk. And Daniel DeRochers took it in stride, and he was a good sport about it. So shout out to Daniel DeRochers. But the point is, DeRochers has this story, and I believe he's the only one that's covered it in Missouri, and that Eric Schmitt was involved last week in sitting down with Donald Trump and doing a little debate prep with Donald Trump. The debate, of course, is next Thursday, June 27th, and there's been much hubbub about what the rules of the debate will be. But I think it's pretty cool that Missouri's junior senator sat down with the president and got him ready for this debate, Brad.
Yeah, but John, can I give my opinion on this?
Please do.
Isn't this much ado about nothing? Isn't this more about Eric Schmitt, feathering his nest than helping the president? Because that way you can
Absolutely
say,
not.
Absolutely. You don't think so?
No, of course not. I think that somebody from and DeRochers does a good job in the story of kind of excavating through the spin of what really happened here. First of all, Schmitt's quotes are quite humble, Brad. If they were any more humble, I'd have to call him the second coming of Brad Hildebrand. He said, hey, I was pleased to be asked to do it. And, Schmitt had, I think, the right tone, which was, look, the president doesn't need my help. He's an expert at counterpunching. I don't have Schmitt's quote in front of me right now. But the idea was that Schmitt gave Trump credit for already being a great debater, for being a great counterpuncher. And Schmitt said, hey, anything I was able to do to help him get him ready on some of these issues, it was an honor to do it. So, no, I don't think it's Schmitt patting himself on the back at all.
Well, you and I are going to disagree on this, but I'll give you my analogy. It would be like me coming out and saying, I was going to buy another radio station, and I called up my good friend Elon Musk, and I said, Elon, what do you think I should do? And people go, first off, most people go, oh my God, Elon Musk? The idea of being, at that point in time, it's all about me knowing Elon Musk, has nothing to do with me getting any advice or, giving or taking any advice from, Elon Musk. It's all about, I rub elbows with the president. I think it's...
Yeah, but I don't think Schmitt needs it. Schmitt played golf with the president. I don't know, I saw a picture of it on social media.
John...
I don't think this debate piece has anything to do with. And by the way, in Trump world, there are so many leaks, Brad. People are so fascinated by Trump, and his team tells so many stories to conservative media. It's not like Schmitt needs to come out and tell people, oh, by the way, when the president was in Washington, I was chosen to debate.
You just made my...
And by the way, Brad, I heard a rumor that later on today I might outbid you for a radio station. So should I text Elon Musk?
Well, John, you sort of just made my point when you say, Eric Schmitt played golf. Once again, it's like how many people can say, I played golf. Can I tell you my Mike Pence story? You want to hear?
Please do.
You want to hear my Mike Pence story?
You were not alone in a room with him because you're such a pretty girl. Is that what the story is, Brad?
Boy, John,
he didn't want to close the door.
John's loaded this morning, man.
He didn't trust himself.
John is ready to roll. He is locked and loaded. We have to take a break, although I don't want to, because John's just going to continue to lay the stuff on me, make me look like the straight man that I am. Okay.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?